Welcome everybody from the Sparx Systems YouTube channel. It's great to have you here today. Once again, we're looking at our urban parking system repository that's been designed and developed in Enterprise Architect. Today, we're going to look at a brand new series where we're going to look at requirements modeling and management. And we're going to look at how you can use Enterprise Architect to do some of the features and some of the management of requirements within Enterprise Architect. My name's Scott Hebbard. I'm joined today by Stephen Maguire. Welcome, Stephen. What can you tell us to give us a bit of a general overview of requirements modeling and management in Enterprise Architect?
Thanks for the introduction, Scott, and always a pleasure to be here. Yes, this is a large topic, in fact, because the tool Enterprise Architect has so many facilities and functions, tool features to enable people to both create requirements, so requirements development, and also requirements management. So if you're doing your requirements in a spreadsheet or something like that, some other tool, a word processing tool, I think you'll enjoy these videos and you'll see that there is great opportunity to be much more productive inside Enterprise Architect. So we are going to run a series of videos, and this one this morning is really about an overview of some of the things that you should consider when starting to do requirements modeling. So as always, Scott, I like to set my perspective up in the top right hand corner. You can see I've been doing some work on the perspective Microsoft Azure, so I've been doing some cloud modeling there. I want to change my perspective. I can look at the perspective set requirements, and I'll just say that I want the requirements one there. The tool opens up and it has got a number of patterns here as part of the builder page. We're going to close that, but people can use this builder page productively and just inject the models into their repository by clicking on the Create Model button there. So let's make a start. We're going to close that page. Scott, we're just going to have a look around the repository and the tool and get a bit of an idea of the kind of things that you can do with the tool as far as creating, developing, managing requirements. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to go to the Start ribbon and the collaboration panel. Remember, Enterprise Architect has been built from the ground up as a collaboration platform, many features there, and never is it more pertinent than when creating the requirements. An error in requirements can cascade into a great deal of rework and cost at a lower level. So it is an all-important element. I'm going to go to the model library here. You can see on the collaboration panel there, the model library, and that brings up the library. And I've got with a number of topics in here that we've done before: the systems modeling language for modeling systems engineering, unified modeling language, the open group Archimate. So there's a few things there. I'm just simply going to create a new topic there, and I'm going to call it requirements modeling and management. So having done that, let's add some things here. One of the things I like to do, Scott, is to add some information from the Enterprise Architect help system. So let's have a look at that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a new resource under that requirements modeling there, add URL, and I'm going to call it requirements. Call it Enterprise Architect. Requirements help. So having done that, I'm just going to get a URL to put into that, and that's simply going over to the help system and getting that URL. So I will just put that into my buffer, and might be a minute. Let's just put that into that path there. So I'll go OK to that. Now we've got that in there. If I double click on that in another window, on another monitor, I should say, that's brought up this help system. And you can see now that I've got access to the help. So lots of information in here, the requirements model there. We'll have a look at this help system in just a minute, but I'm going to push that off my screen just for a moment. And remember that you can always get to the help system from the start ribbon, from the help panel, and here you can say either open help or search help. But what this does with the library is it makes it much easier to get straight to that topic.
That's just one click, and then it'll bring up the help and the correct page that you need as well. Yeah,
exactly, Scott. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in another document, if you like, that's going to help us with requirements as well. So I'll click there and say new document, and I'm going to call it characteristics of good requirements. Characteristics of good requirements. So this is a kind of a cheat sheet or a bit of help for people. So let's make sure that's open, and I've got some things in my buffer here. Let's put that in, and you can see now that I've got this document here, characteristics of good requirements. So they have to be atomic, they have to be attainable, they have to be cohesive, complete, current, and so the list goes on. And there's a description there. Requirement should articulate a single stakeholder need or quality attribute when the requirement contains multiple needs. It is not possible to analyze the needs independently. So some things that if you're a requirements analyst, you'll be familiar with, but useful to have it in there. You often have newbies in the team, people that might be just graduates and learning about it, or might be coming to that requirements discipline from another discipline. So having set that up, Scott, the take-home message there is you can create any information in here that you want. You can create your own information. You can put your own references in. And remember, you can see from that Enterprise Architect Help example that's an external resource. So say yes to that. I want to save that. And that could be something on any of your content management systems. So if you're using SharePoint or one of Confluence, one of those other tools, you can reference that from within.
And if a business had a set of guidelines for requirements and a set of examples from previous projects, they could list those as well to help newcomers to the repository.
Yeah, exactly, Scott. So let's just have a really quick look at that help. I'm going to bring it back onto that. I'll just click on that thing to open it up again. I'll click on that, and it's open there, and I'll bring it back onto the screen. So this is an important piece of information, Scott. I encourage people to use the Enterprise Architect Help System. There's a lot of rich information, and that's very true in the requirement space. We're just going to go back to the index to show people where this is. It's quite obvious where it is. We're going to go to modeling domains. So these are the modeling disciplines or domains. Click on that, and you can see requirements model is right there at the top where you'd expect it to be, because it's such a foundational piece. So let's click on that, and you can see when that fires up that we've got the requirements model, manage all aspects of requirements from elicitation to validation and reuse. So right across the whole spectrum of requirements management. There's a note about requirements engineering, a word that some people use, which really just means the concept of treating these things as a valuable asset and treating them accordingly. So we've got requirements development here. You can see here that we've got the specification manager displayed. You may not be familiar with that, but let's have a look at that in a little bit. We've got a requirements diagram, and we've got requirements management, charts and graphs and things. So that's incredibly powerful. We've got requirements documentation. So if you've got contractual reasons you need to get requirements out of the tool into a document, then that's very simple to do. It's really just a couple of clicks of the button and a little bit of changing templates if you want to change the appearance. But Enterprise Architect has a range of very useful templates built in. So really you could get that report out with just a couple of button presses. Requirements process and standards. So you can develop your own processes and how you work. So here's an example of a user story that's linked to a more detailed requirement. And the help goes in much more detail, Scott. So I can look at this introduction to requirements there. I can go requirements overview, meet the requirements tools. I'll just click on that and you'll just get a bit of an understanding of the kind of tools that we're going to cover over this video series. So we've got the requirements diagram. That's kind of an obvious one. We've got the specification manager, which puts it into a textual or spreadsheet kind of view. We've got a relationship matrix. baselining, so you can baseline your requirements, a glossary to link the requirements to, discussions that you can start discussing the requirements and make sure that they're right before people start working on them and developing things. Import and export to spreadsheets. So if you've got your requirements in spreadsheets now, you can suck them in and either decommission your spreadsheet, or you can export it back out to a spreadsheet and do some other analysis. So we've got team reviews, requirements checklists, documentation. The list goes on.
And all of this is all within the one tool. It's all within Enterprise Architect.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, Scott, but yes, it all is. It's all in there, and we're going to cover it in these next videos. So stay tuned, and we'll look at those. The help system goes very deep into requirements, in fact, and we can look at this requirements overview here. Again, you can see that all of those things that we've looked at, and characteristics of good requirements. So this has been put into the tool in that document in the team library, the model library there. But here they are detailed as well in the help system. So that will help you to make sure that your requirements.
That looks very similar to the list that you put in the library before.
Yeah, exactly, Scott. It just means that they're available in the library there, right next to you. And the thing about that is that when it's in the library, I can dock that window inside Enterprise Architect and have them sitting there next to me for me to work with. Requirement business context for requirements. There's lots of information here. So we've got an online bookstore example here, and we've got requirements that are linked to it. So drivers and goals from the Archimate world, vision and concept of operation. So feature driven or test driven work policies and business rules. So there's a goal, a policy, a business rule, a functional requirement, stakeholders and their concerns. So we've got stakeholder requirements there, and you can see that that's mapped to a stakeholder. We've got a little icon, a little avatar there. You could use a general avatar, Scott, or you could have an avatar for the actual people that are working. So, Jenny Appleton Smith, for example, you could have an avatar for her, and she might be the security manager or something, and you can link those up and it makes it more real. So lots of information in that help, and I encourage people to look at that. And let's have a look just at a couple of other things. Creating and viewing requirements. So here we have the specification manager. We've got the browser window. We've got a requirements diagram in a matrix kind of view there, which is showing that. We've got another matrix view here. We've got scenarios for use cases and user story type of information. Traceability window, diagram lists, lots and lots of things that's got. Let's take a quick look now at some of these details inside our urban parking meter repository. I'm going to close this team library, but remember, I could dock that. I'll just show you that. I could dock that on the side here and start my work and make sure that I'm there working in compliance with these suggested characteristics of good requirements. So I'll close that, but remember that it's there. Let's have a look through our repository. I'm going to click on the browser tab there and get back to my browser. Now, we have done some requirements modeling in an earlier video. Let's just have a very quick look at that. We've got functional requirements there, and let's have a look. Functional requirements times information model. We can look at that, and we can see that requirements are being related to use cases, which are being related to conceptual entities and finally to physical entities. So that's an interesting thing for you to do. The requirements model there, you can see that we've got
some of the requirements are embedded with one another,
nested inside, Scott, and you can see that's reflected in the browser as well. So a number of different views there. The requirements use case traceability, the requirements of the business case. So let's have a look at that. So when you're starting requirements, it's not like you're starting completely from scratch. There is often quite a lot of information already existing either in the repository, and if it's not, then you can bring it in. So this business case, for example, a really useful example. So the business case, urban parking meter system business case. So you can see that that's what it started. It started be calling the urban parking meter system business case, but then it was expanded to be a much more general thing other than just meters to be dealing with boom gate parking and all sorts of other things. So there's a description in there about that. And then when I click on this, I can bring up inside Enterprise Architect that business case. And so,
Right.
it's their strategic context, inefficient enforcement leading to revenue leakage, limited payment options, frustrating citizens, aging infrastructure requiring frequent repairs. And of course, somewhere in here you'll find that that the age-old coin parking meter, Scott, is due to be replaced, and you could really kind of talk about that as being infrastructure from the 20th rather than the 21st century.
Yes.
Proposed solution there, financial benefits, 25 to 30% increase in parking revenue through improved compliance. So we could look at this in a lot more detail, but it's there, and we can link our requirements to that business case. So when we start our requirements, we don't want to just start them and in from scratch and have them as isolated islands, if you like, in the model. You want to be, as always, want to be able to connect them to other things. So let's have a look at what other things we could connect it to. There's the business case. But if we have a look at our business models here or our strategic models, you can see that we do have a number of other diagrams here in our strategic model. For example, the value chain. We might find things in the value chain that are useful to connect to. So we've got this services one here. We've got operations, and you'll find that there are things that we can have a look at there with operations, and you'll be able to link some of your requirements to those the value streams. So let's have another quick look at some other things here. We've got our business models here. We've got business models there. Let's have a look at some other things here. One of the things, Scott, that we'll look at in a future video, we'll probably look at that reasonably soon, is the business process model, and we'll also look at a mind mapping diagram, Scott, that is going to be very useful as well. So let's have a look at this case management dispute thing here. We've got some things about disputes going on in the case management. We've got our business case that we saw there. We've got our business processes, and so from our business processes, we start to see some of the requirements that we're going to need, like manage parking reservations. What does this manage permits mean? How's that going to be handled there? So we have a number of other diagrams and things that we can relate this to, and one of them is going to be the mind mapping diagram that I talked about a little while ago. So that's going to be a useful thing to do, and we'll look at that in another video, as I said. So Scott, how do you start this? Well, I started by putting my perspective to requirements. So that's the obvious thing to do. And then if I look at my models, I need to find some places to put them, and I've got models down here. And so I can start by simply creating, for example, a requirements diagram. Say, look, I want a requirements diagram. I can do that there. But the other thing, Scott, is that we looked at when we were doing this video earlier. I'm going to close this builders page for the moment, and I can just look at my toolbox, look at requirements there, and I can drag requirements directly from that toolbox directly into the project browser. So I don't actually need to have a diagram, and you might want to manage these things from the browser, and that's completely understandable. The other thing is you can use some of these powerful tools like the specification manager here, and let me just put that on. So we've got
that's more of a spreadsheet view.
Yeah, that's right, Scott. Well, this one here has got the notes format underneath, so it's a little bit like a spreadsheet, halfway between a document and a spreadsheet. And the good thing is I can change some of the statuses, information like the metadata on it, and I can put that format into notes in line, full notes in column as well. So I can do that, and I can edit directly here, Scott. I can just edit these things in line. So if you don't want to work with requirements in a diagram or anything, you can work through this.
If you had 20 requirements there and 3 were missing and didn't have notes, it'd make it easy to spot the gaps and to fill them in. And
yeah, exactly, Scott. Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's all about completeness there. And you can see that we have been quite thorough. And you can see these elements are nested here underneath them, and you can collapse those things and expand them. So
at the bottom of the list, it looked like there was an add new. Does that allow you to add a new requirement? Just
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Scott. You can just you can click anything you want. There's requirements there, and you can see that I've got a number of different types of requirements. And I'm going to come back to that and just show you that again in my requirements toolbox. We'll cover this in another video. Requirements aren't, not all requirements are equal, and they're not all the same. So we've got here extended requirements: functional, business, user, non-functional, architectural, implementation, regulatory, security. So they are what's called stereotypes. And if I want to create one of those, it gives it a stereotype, and that allows me to group them, if you like, based on those particular disciplines, because they're almost like disciplines: the architectural discipline, the implementation people, regulatory. That's going to be a very useful thing. We'll talk about that in a future video, but that's just a broad overview of some of the things that we're going to cover in this series of videos, and just an introduction to the power of Enterprise Architect to model requirements. And Scott, I really have just scratched the surface. You will see in this video series that there's a lot more things than we've mentioned today. But I encourage people to think about, if you've got your requirements in something like a word processor or a spreadsheet, to watch this video series and to learn about how you can get productivity gains by modeling your requirements, developing them, and managing them inside Enterprise Architect.
Thanks, Stephen. It's been really good to see so many tools and features and help links and so many different types of requirements and different tools that you can implement to do requirements management and modeling all within Enterprise Architect. So I know we have really just scratched the surface, because I counted 20 or 30 different things that we could look into just as a result of this video. So it's amazing. I'd like to thank our YouTube audience for joining us today. It's always great to have you join us. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, we encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe to the Sparx Systems YouTube channel. If you have any questions about requirements, modeling, and management, you can reach out to Stephen using his credentials below. Both his LinkedIn and website credentials are listed in the video description below. And as always, Stephen, thank you very much for such a broad, comprehensive overview of requirements, and I look forward to drilling down into some of these topics to see how we can do it all in Enterprise Architect.
Thanks, Scott. Always good to be here, and I look forward to presenting a lot more information about requirements modeling and management in Enterprise Architect.